Digital Zone. It's a real pleasure for me to organize this conference in the 4th year, and I just want to tell about a short story about how we started Zio, how we started Digital Zone, and what we'll do in the next meeting. In 2012, when I was a university student at Bilkent University, this time, right? We just trying to help many brands as a freelancer with my friends. So after that, we understand that we need to scale this business to up because there are huge demand for our services. And then we start to SEO Zio. And at this period of time, when I was 22 years old, I really couldn't dream to have a conference with well-known speakers like Rand Fishkin, Will Reynolds, Gary Hillis, Judith Lewis, Tom Anthony, and many and more and more. And so it's quite exciting experience for me. And thank you so much for everybody who is joining for us. I want to announce two main points in this situation, but first I want to just say sorry because we just need to start 20 minutes late because of the some problems on the main road at Istanbul. There were a car crash, so it's happening in Istanbul, you know. There is two announcements made by me. If you want to take a free ticket for the next year, you can tweet with Digital Zone hashtag because we will just distribute 10 free tickets if you're able to send a tweet. There will be 500 people in this room, and I think your chance is too high. You can also consider this. It's not only a chance to get the free ticket for the next year, and if you're able to just take your notes by using your event books and notebooks and distribute it with your own blog. So we will directly give you a free ticket to you. So it might be an incentive situation for you as well. So I think that's all the thing I want to share with you. So I'm really excited to be here with you. Thank you for joining us. And then I want to introduce Judith Lewis. Judith was one of the previous speakers in SEO Zone 15, formerly SEO Zone, right now Digital Zone. She has enormous energy, great knowledge. When I first meet with Judith at European Search Awards, after that hearing her comments, and I said that how can a person can be that much knowledgeable in PPC, in SEO, in content marketing, and I think she is a pure genius, and thank you for accepting our invitation, Judith.
Oh my God, what a Hello, good morning. Good morning. Oh my God, we're very early here this morning. It's a very early start. I know I don't really sound British. I'm here from the UK, but I'm actually Canadian, and I often forget to introduce who I am, so I always put a slide in here to remind myself who I am, or to remind myself to say who I am. And at this hour of the morning, we probably all need a little bit of a reminder about who I am. I've been doing this for around 20 years now, and thank you for thinking I don't look that old. Thank you. Last year I was really sweary, so I promise I will try not to swear as much. And for those of you who saw me last year, thank you for noticing I have lost some weight. As you mentioned, I'm one of the judges of the UK, US, and EU Search Awards. I do all three because I'm a glutton for punishment. I enjoy the punishment of having to judge all these awards, but I would like to encourage you all that have agencies or have an in-house team to please enter, because the more the merrier. We want more entries because we want to read more stuff and spend more time promoting people who need to be promoted, so please do enter. Now, I've forgotten the chocolate that I was meant to give out to you guys, so I have a deal. If you ask a question, I won't throw chocolate at you as I usually do, and the chocolate was streamlined to make sure that I could throw it really far and hit people in the eye. If you ask me a question, at the next break, I'm going to go get the chocolate and bring it back, and I have Lindt chocolate to give out for questions. So ask a question now, and I will be bringing chocolate with me at the next break. Lindt, lovely Lindor melting chocolate bars. It's delicious. It's worth asking a question. So I was asked to speak on keyword research because last year I did a workshop where I actually taught everybody about how I do keyword research. And it's a little bit different from how everybody else does keyword research. So he asked me to come in and speak about it, but also because keyword research is changing now because Google is combining the search volumes for keywords. It's really difficult to find out what you should be writing towards, what you should be optimizing towards. And keyword research, it's never, for me, it's never been a direct path. It's not about just researching a bunch of keywords, slapping them in a spreadsheet, and doing a page of keywords. That was never my technique, that was never my strategy. It's a bad strategy, it's very spammy, it's very short term. So keyword research isn't really a direct route from A to B. It's all about discovering, uncovering, researching, figuring things out, moving things along. So these are the points that I want to cover today. And of course, for any of you who were here last year and heard my talk, you'll know that I love to cheat. So my very last point, to keep you all interested in thinking, so that you'll be ready with your questions for chocolate, is I'm going to show you how I cheat at keyword research. Now, keyword research, as I said, it's never been about one keyword, one page, spammy, bad tactics. Do not do that, please. Just say no to spam. It's not worthwhile anymore. Even if you spin it as much as you can, it's still just not worth it. So I think that what we need to be doing as marketers is talking around topics, is adding value. We want to make sure that we're actually helping the people that we're writing this content for, not just filling the internet with yet another microsite. Just say no to microsites. There are millions and millions of abandoned, orphaned, lonely microsites out there that have been built and just left alone, unwanted, unloved. Please, just say no to more microsites. Build good content that lasts. Don't abandon yet another microsite to the internet. So we want to think about what we're actually doing, but sometimes we don't know how people talk about our own stuff. We have ways of talking about our products and services. So I have an online marketing service, and when I get in an elevator or here in Istanbul, when I'm standing in the line to get through passport control for an hour and a half, and someone behind me says, "So, what do you do?" And I say, "Well, I'm in online marketing." And the wife translates to the husband and he says, "Oh, IT." No, sometimes people refer to what we do differently than how we refer to ourselves. So it's really important to research your own products and understand how people are talking about you. So I did some work for a client, so there's a couple of slides in here that are actually reflective of what I did for them, which I like to do because it shows you what we actually do in real life. I'm not showing you theoretical stuff that I just put together for my slides. I've basically taken stuff out of that and plunked it into this presentation so that you can see what I actually do. I did mock up on my cheat section something to help you out, but we'll get that later. So you want to look at what is going on out there. What are people calling your service or your product? Are they really calling all online marketers IT? Are they really calling your product something completely different? I would caution you about getting too deeply into Quora and Yahoo Answers because I find it one of the most depressing places on earth. I look at the questions that people are asking and I despair for our educational standards because really we should know better. But the world seems to go onto Quora or Yahoo Answers and ask some of the strangest questions. But it's a good place to figure out what people are calling your product. Also, sometimes we call ourselves something to differentiate. So we're doing something to try to say, you know, we're awesome. We know we're awesome because we call what we do something completely different from those guys over there. They call their chocolate just chocolate. We don't call our chocolate chocolate. We call our chocolate the luscious brown deliciousness of awesome. And yet everybody's calling it chocolate. So really, you need to look at your competition as well to see what are they talking about as far as your product goes. Why? Well, because we want to beat them, right? We don't want to just like be second best. We want to be best. And in order to be best, we need to not only do our stuff awesomely, we need to know what they're doing, figure it out, don't just copy it, but do one better. So we're not just talking about copying their tactics, we're talking about interestingly being inspired by their tactics and doing one better, right? We're not just copying, right? None of us are just copying. We're being inspired by the competition. I like to use SEMrush to look at what they're, I've said steal their ideas, but don't just steal their ideas. Steal their ideas and then do one better. Be awesomer, because I don't know how you're going to translate that word. Sorry. It's not a real word. Sometimes I forget. There is translation, and I use fake words like awesomer, and then they have to think about what in the world does she actually mean? What is she talking about? So improve what your competition is doing. Don't just cheat and steal their ideas and their links and whatever. Do one better. Be inspired by what they're doing and do more. Do better. Do more awesome things, which is almost grammatically correct. Understand what people are asking about. Like, what are you doing for your clients, for your customers? Are you helping them or are you spamming them? People don't want to be spoken at. They want a conversation with you. And if you can start that conversation online, it helps. And part of keyword research is understanding what people are asking. Because if you don't understand that, you can't possibly help them. So you need to answer a question or help them somehow. Because people are going into Google and they're saying, what is the best chocolate? Now, I don't agree with Google's answer to this question, personally. As a chocolate fan, and as somebody who has a chocolate blog, I have very specific feelings on this topic of chocolate, as, of course, you already know, because I brought delicious chocolate. But I don't agree with their answer, and you might not agree with their answer about your product or service. So why not look at what people are asking and help by answering those questions? It's all about trying to help people. So one of the tools that could help you, now don't forget we are going to have to back all of this up with data, but one of the tools that could help you is answerthepublic.com. And you can see here, it's very tiny, that what it does is takes one word, in this case chocolate, of course, and it spins out all sorts of questions that you could be answering, that you could be helping people with. One of the most important questions, of course, is which chocolate fountain is best to buy? Because chocolate fountains are where the liquid chocolate comes out. You sort of dip the strawberries or marshmallows in and eat the melted chocolate. That's a very important question to think about. Also, there's search intent. Now, this is a UK-based tool, but these tools do have Turkish-based data sometimes. Keywordtool.io has Turkish-based data. So a lot of these tools will have Turkish-based data, not just English. So this is another one that could help you answer questions. And what it does is lets you explore. So instead of looking at what questions are in a big wheel, this allows you to just click each node and investigate each node, so you can be very specific on your research. And of course, we all know that lists do well and numbers absolutely sell. So Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, when you're tired, the end of the week is looming, it's Thursday afternoon, you're thinking, it's almost the weekend, it's almost the weekend, it's almost the weekend. And you're like, I'll just go on the internet and see what's fun. Are there any new cat videos? 50,000 cat videos later. You want something light, and this is the kind of content that can be light but help with brand. So please don't go off-brand with this. Don't be like, the 10 best snails I've ever seen in my life, and you're trying to sell chocolate. Might not be, chocolate-covered snails is not a thing. It might not be well aligned, but if you can do something that's aligned with your brand, it can help with brand recognition, and when people come to buy, they'll remember. Also, don't just use one tool. So many people just use Google Adwords. And while I suppose I'm bound to have to say, because Gary is probably in the audience, that Google Adwords is, of course, quite awesome. I can't see Gary. There's like light in my eyes. Awesome, Gary. Honest. Google is awesome. Use several tools. Don't just use one, because it's never a good idea to put all of your eggs in one basket. So I always suggest that you use a lot of tools, because keyword research isn't about one, and don't worry, you'll get all these slides later too, I promise. It's like everybody's camera went out, and it's like, oh my God, there's 60 million URLs, quick, take a picture. You can, unlike last year, you can all have a copy of these slides, because there's nothing in here that I'm not embarrassed about sharing. As you can tell, I'm very sharing. So yes, you will get a copy of these. So all of these URLs are all different tools that you can use. Some are paid, so some don't give you the information for free, but some are free. But what I want to emphasize here is that you're using a lot of different things. So don't just use one thing and think that it is the only tool that you need. You need several tools to help you do different things. So Answer the Public is a great tool to help you spin out all these questions, but it's no good for looking at data. We've no data coming from Answer the Public. It just creates lots of questions, and it can be a bit overwhelming to have to answer all those questions. And anyone who has, like a 5-year-old, will know the unending stream of questions. But why? Why is chocolate brown? Why is that brown chocolate shiny? Is all brown chocolate shiny? Is all chocolate brown? The unending stream of questions you can get out of AnswerThePublic.com. AnswerThePublic.com has nothing on a 5-year-old. If you want questions, just spend some time with a 5-year-old and say, what do you think of this? And then 2 days later, when you finally finish answering all the questions, you'll understand. So all of these tools do different things, but a lot of them just spin keywords, and that isn't data-driven insights. We want data. So this is good for some of it, but not all of it. We want to make sure that we're underpinning everything with data. We need to know whether or not anyone actually wants to know what the best chocolate fountain is to buy. Because if no one cares, why are we answering the question? So this is a very naughty word. This is one of the tools. For those of you who read English, I won't repeat it so that I don't make the poor translator swear. But this is one of the tools that you can use to spin huge numbers of keyword lists. And for anyone who's in-house, if you've ever received from your agency a list of keywords that's huge and broken off into categories, they probably just used a tool and output a huge list of keywords and then said, here's 10 million keywords. Would you like to pick some? It's not the best way to go. Hopefully what we're going to do is use tools like this for the initial research, but then segment into topics. Remember earlier I said we want to group everything into topics, not keywords? That's what we want to do. These tools only start us out. They start us on the road to where we want to go, but they don't take us the whole way there. Obviously, because Gary is somewhere out there, Google Trends is good. Google Trends. Wow! Google Trends is one of those things that can be very useful, and you can see that there's huge amounts of interest in Brexit when I took this. Why? Because we're foolish. We like to read about things in the UK and then just go, yeah, whatever, which box am I supposed to, whatever, I want to get to the pub, that one is fine. So everybody went to the pub and we ended up leaving Europe. It was a foolish thing. They should have done it on a day when the pubs were closed, and then everyone would have voted. I was at a conference watching the results come in. It was quite depressing. That's why we started drinking even heavier, more heavily. I swear to you, English is my first language. It's just not necessarily my first language early in the morning. Also, you can see seasonal trends for chocolate, of course. And I am really, really glad to see that the trend for chocolate is going up. Of course, Google Adwords is where we get some of our data from. Now, Adwords is moving away from having individual keywords. It used to be individual keywords, whether it was plural or singular, you could see whether people were searching more for the plural or for the singular version. Unfortunately, that's going away or has already gone away in a lot of industries. And so it's all amalgamated together, and we're just seeing all of the keyword data all in one place. So it doesn't do us as much good as if we had it separate and we knew what people were asking and what people were searching for. However, we need data from somewhere. And this right now is one of the places to get data. Of course, I do love Bing. I love Yahoo too, but you know, when you've been in the industry 20 years, you get attached to old stuff that's now obsolete. I remember stuff that Yahoo had that was fantastic. I still miss it. I'm that old. So Google AdWords is one of those things where we use it to have some data, but do not use this to say you absolutely will get this traffic. All we're using this data for is to compare. We're not using this to say we are actually going to get this much traffic. That is not what we're using this for. We're just using this for a relative scale of what traffic might be like against other words. So please don't think that these are the real numbers. They're not. And anyone who's ever run an AdWords campaign and put their budget together based on these numbers knows that these numbers are lies. Sorry, Gary. Also, you can see seasonality. So this is one of the things that really does help is seasonality. One of the things that surprises me about this search for chocolate truffles, because chocolate truffles are little brown, melty balls of deliciousness. The chocolate bars that I have for you are truffle-centered chocolate bars. They're melty brown bars of deliciousness. But look at this. Chocolate truffles has a seasonality which spikes in December. But for me, chocolate truffles are for life. They're not just for Christmas. You eat more chocolate truffles, people. Don't leave them languishing till December. They're sad and lonely in February. Give chocolate truffles a home in your tummy. It's only for the best. So chocolate truffles is one of those ones with intense seasonality, but what that tells us is we need to be ready before December to have our content up and live and be answering questions like, are chocolate truffles just for Christmas or are they for life? The answer is always for life. This is how I do keyword research. So this is the final step in keyword research for me. And this is what I told people how to do last year, and this is what Judith has asked me to come back and teach you how to do today. Now, because I'm going to share my slides with you, I do not have a step-by-step set of slides to show you how to do this, because it's something that I've been doing for a few years, but it's something that's quite unique and isn't done very many places. So I don't want everybody going on to SlideShare and just being able to replicate this. I only want you to know how to do this and be able to replicate it. Now, you can see here, this is some keyword research that I did for a drugs company in the United States around heart failure drugs. And they wanted to create a community to help people. So we were looking at topics that people with heart failure were asking about, because this wasn't about selling drugs, this was about helping people who had congestive heart failure or heart failure live a fuller life by answering their questions So it was really important that we knew what questions they were asking. And if we didn't understand their questions, we couldn't just answer them, because the drugs company thought, we know what they're asking about. We're the drugs company. We make the drugs. We know their questions. But the questions they were really asking were quite different. What's the life expectancy with congestive heart failure? Sadly, it's quite short. But it doesn't mean that you should just give up. So this community was about helping people by answering questions. And that's why it's so important. Also, juicing for congestive heart failure, not necessarily safe. We wanted to make sure that we were answering that question. We were addressing that topic to make sure that we didn't have people who were shortening their lives by juicing for congestive heart failure the wrong vegetables and fruits. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to think about. But of course, my favorite topic is cheating. So how do we cheat at keyword research and get that lovely scatter graph? Well, we basically steal everybody else's ideas and data, and then we spin it out and do something more awesome with it. So I use SEMrush. It's a paid tool. I don't make any money from promoting SEMrush at all. There's no affiliate link there. There's no affiliate code. That's just their URL. They'll never know that I sent you to them. If they get a spike in traffic right now, they'll have no idea why. So I recommend SEMrush because I like to nose into what the competition's doing. I'm like, so what are my fellow bloggers writing about? What are they ranking for? What should I be doing differently? What should I be doing better? So I like to do that. And the reason I do is because you get lovely data like this. Now remember what I said earlier about Google putting all the data together. You can see that SEMrush pulls the data for those keywords. And then, most importantly, and you'll understand why in a second, the results. Do you see that results column? That's the number of results for that search. So you know when you go into Google and sometimes you get, when you're searching, it says 1 to 10 of 20 million results. That's that number. And the reason that's important is because that's what we're mapping here. So I'm going to tell you how to do this. There are two axes here on this chart. This is an Excel spreadsheet where I've made a scatter graph. So it's just called a scatter graph, and that's the kind of graph you use in Excel. So it's just an Excel graph. There's nothing special about it. The one special thing, and it's not special, is there's a plugin to put the words here. So there's a plugin to put the words on, but that's just it. It's called XY Chart Labeler. XY Chart Labeler. And that puts the words on the scatter graph, that's all. Instead of a number that refers to the data point, it tells you what the word is. That's it. So XY Chart Labeler in Excel. And that's it. And you can make something like this. So there are two axes. The first one is the number of searches. So you can see I have search volume over there on the far side. That's the up-down axes. So the higher something is, the more people are searching for it. Remember in SEMrush, we had that number, the number of searches. This is our data point. Our first data point is how many people are actually searching for this. If it's on the bottom, if it's 0 or 10, then we're not interested in it because no one's looking for it. Let's move on to some other topics. The left-right is the number of people who have search results matching that keyword. If it's too far over to the right and on the bottom, we don't want to use it. Do you see this keyword right here, or this phrase, how chocolate is made? No one in this room should ever pick this as a topic. Why? Because there's not a lot of people searching for it. Remember, up, down for our search volume. And there's a lot of websites trying to rank for it. Left, right. The further right we are, the more competition. So 2 columns. You need to change the measuring to log scale. So what I do is in Excel, I have my keyword, my search volume, and my competition, the number of results. Then I change them in another column, equals, bracket, log, bracket, click the cell you want, and then close your brackets. That's it. All you're doing is changing that number into a log. That's it. And then those two numbers are both changed into logs. So you've got your two columns. And those two columns of the log, those are what you're putting on there. And that's how you make this scatter graph. The background is just you right-click on it and you change the background. That's all. You can position the colors anywhere you want, but that's how you make this graph. It's as easy as that. 3 columns to begin with. Remember, our 3 columns come from here. It's our keyword, our volume, and our results. Then we have 2 more columns, and that's where we change those numbers into logs. L-O-G, log. All that's doing is giving us a standardized X-Y axes so that we can actually chart everything out. And it also enables us to add more data in. So one of the additional data points you can add is you could look at how difficult it will be to challenge. And that can come from something like Moz domain authority, which already is in a log scale. We used to use PageRank because we had a way of scraping PageRank. So you can add that in. So then you would have 2 data points, but one of your data points would have 2 data origins. So you'd have the number of results and the DA of the pages, the top 5 pages or something like that, divided by 5, just to see how difficult it is. But fundamentally, 2, that's it. That's all you need, and you can make this. And what will this do? This will enable you to really quickly see what you should be doing, what you should be targeting, what you should be going after as far as topics. Look at those topics up there. Chocolate chip cookies. I love chocolate chip cookies. They fill you with warm goodness. But you know what? Raisins are why I have trust issues. Have you ever taken a cookie and you thought it was chocolate chip, but then when you started eating it, you realized it was raisin? It's like a betrayal. It's like someone came along and said, it's a gift from Santa. There is no Santa Claus. It's like every child's nightmare. Chocolate chip cookie? No, it's raisin oatmeal. It's healthy. No, that's evil. But you see chocolate chip cookies up there. That's a good topic to write on. Lots of people are looking for chocolate chip cookies, but there's not a lot of results. And that's come through from SEMrush. I did this on the plane on the way over. It took me like half an hour. I just took those search results from SEMrush and I just turned them into this scatter graph. So you can do it too. It might not be just a half an hour, but you can do it too. So SEMrush is where I steal my data from. It also gives you great dashboards where you can see all sorts of information about competitors. Who are your perceived competitors? Are you a competitor based on this tool for your competition? The other day, I did this for somebody just as a friend. I said, oh, look, here's what your data looks like. And they were like, oh, so none of those people are our competition. And our competitors aren't there. Why? Because they hadn't optimized properly. None of their content or topics were what their audience was actually looking for. So I suggested that they rethink their strategy. And you can see from my blog here, things that I rank for, because I'm pretty free and open with data from my blog. And you can see the different things I've got, like a chocolate wine review. In a nutshell, my chocolate wine review says, just say no. It's not very good. They add chocolate into wine. It's no, just don't. It's not, no. Just don't. Just don't even think about it. Don't give it any brain time. So this is the point where I want you to ask me questions to get chocolate. So do you have any questions about keyword research, and not about link building, because I can't answer those? No, you're all like, we've been so busy taking pictures of your slides. Igit, what are you going to ask me about keyword research? What could you possibly ask me about keyword research?
And they are cutting the data day by day. And what do you think about the feature of the keyword research? Because the major data points come from the Google's background, so the search volume and the keyword generation ideas as well. So there are great tools like SEO Monitor and SEMrush, like you said, but the data point is Google, and if we miss this main data point, the other tools also will be impacted?
Yes.
What do you think about it?
Well, some of the tools are saving the data. So there are tools out there that actually, because they're constantly scraping, they're keeping the data. And there are tools, I think SEO Monitor is now breaking out the data so that you can see the old data and the new amalgamated data. So SEO Monitor will actually give you data that's split out again, so you can see single versus plural. So that's very, very useful if you have SEO Monitor to use their keyword tool that way. And people like SEMrush are saving the keyword data so that as Google takes this away from us, they still have a historical record. It means that as search behavior changes, it will be difficult for us to understand it. But we have to use the tools like Trends, Google Trends, to see, well, these keywords were going up, and so we know there's more search volume now. But really, we're only using the search volume to give us a relative measure of what we should be looking at, but not an actual number. So by these tools saving the data for us, then we'll be able to continue measuring relative value, but not absolute, because none of this data is actually true. It's only what Google allows us to see. And because of that, we're only looking at relative measures.
Okay, but what do you think about the freshness of the data? Maybe 1 year later, because of the regulations of the Googles and cutting down, and we couldn't reach to the fresh data. And okay, some of the major data providers are just caching data for us. But what do you think about maybe 2 or 3 years later? But also there is a part of PPC, and Google also needs to provide some data. But for the future, should we only need to use the 2015 or 2016 data for the next several years?
Last year, somebody asked me what would happen if we all became telepathic in the future, and so we didn't need to use Google. We just used our telepathy to find what we needed to know. It's very difficult to know what's happening in the future. When Yahoo stopped providing data about links and things like that, and keyword volumes and stuff, it was very difficult. They had old data, but that very quickly became stale, and we were very reliant on it. But now we're coming into a much more not mature environment, but what's happening is we're very much looking at Facebook and other platforms that are taking much more search volume. So Amazon, eBay, and Facebook are places that we don't really have keyword research visibility on, but those are places that I recommend my clients go into, because if you have a product to sell and you're not on Amazon, you're invisible. Because I don't know how many people in this room might just go to Amazon first for a product before they even touch Google. My husband does that, and he's just a normal person. Well, he's a programmer, so he's not normal, but...
Yeah, but there isn't any Amazon in Turkey. Maybe we can say hepsi burada.
Ah, fantastic. Google still has a foothold here for products then. But globally, we're seeing a shift in behavior. So 2016 search data will very quickly go out of date. It will very quickly be useless. But we're not using it as an absolute view. We're using it only as a relative measure to see how things are balanced against each other. Once we hit 2017, 2016 data is useless if we're using it as an absolute. But if you use that, there are no numbers on these scales. Do you see? And I've turned them into log. There are no numbers here. We're not looking at data. We're looking at the relationship of everything to everything else. So we're only looking at relationships here, and that's why I only look at relationships and not absolute data, is because we're looking at the relationship. Now, it will be a historic relationship. It won't be the way it is now. For all I know, chocolate chip cookies and writing about chocolate chip cookie recipes, and there are 2 or 3 on my blog if you want some. Chocolate chip cookies and chocolate chip cookie recipes could become something that people only ever go to a recipe site for and never look on Google for again. So that could go straight down. We won't know that when Google takes the data away. But for now, with SEO Monitor and SEMrush and other tools, unfortunately, that we have to pay for, but that have the data saved, we'll be able to do something like this, which shows us relationships, but not numbers.
Great answer. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Where's your blog? It's mostly about chocolate.com. What's your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe?
Hello, Olgu Şengül from Generali Sigorta. So my question is a little bit like strange question, but so it came to my mind. So so we are doing keyword research. So before we were using Google, and so it was only for desktop. So do you think that currently in our mobile age, we should consider keywords that people are searching, desktop and mobile, and develop a strategy differently? This is the first question. Secondly, is there any tool or study that really differentiates the keywords or research on mobile and desktop differently? Thank you.
I don't know if it shows in the screenshot. Yes, it does. This is SEMrush. So you see here, they break out desktop versus mobile. So you actually have that separation here of desktop versus mobile search. Should you be optimizing different content? There shouldn't be a circumstance when you have to have mobile-only search result pages on your site and desktop-only search result pages on your site. You should be helping people and writing around topics and themes and answering questions and adding value. So there should be no need to separate it out. If you're separating it out because the keyword search volumes are different, then that's spammy. That's a spammy tactic, and it's not good for the long term. It will only serve you for a short time while those searches are that way, and then once the search volume starts to change, it will no longer work for you. But you should look at things like AMP, fast server response time for your mobile site, responsive sites, things that will help your site rank better in mobile search results so that you get better visibility, because more and more people have 2 or 3 devices when they're watching TV or on the train or on the bus or in the car as a passenger. Please don't use your mobile phones when you drive, or your tablets or a laptop. People have been caught using laptops while driving, so please just say no. So you shouldn't be optimizing differently, but be aware that people use mobiles differently, they search differently, they use language differently, but because of the way that Google's algorithm and artificial intelligence looks at language, you should be able to, if you're answering questions and helping people, rank well in mobile and desktop. If you're being spammy, then yes, you'll have to separate the two out. So don't forget to find me for chocolate later.
Hi. Using chocolate as an insider to my question just work, it seems. It's Faton from Kosovo. So using this keyword tool works in most of languages, especially in English. But when it comes to languages like Albanian, it kind of seems quite a challenge. So what's your strategy on dealing with the languages that are kind of unsupported in most of these keyword tools? Thank you.
So if I have to do something in a language that's not supported in keyword tools, what do I do? Besides stealing everybody else's keywords and then using the tools that do have it, there are some tools that will work, that will have that data of what's happening, but not all of them. So something like SEO Monitor doesn't rely on SEMrush data or anything. It uses Google Search Console, so that's your data that's coming in, as well as looking at your content, as well as other things. So SEO Monitor and tools like that don't rely on tools having their own data, like SEMrush has its own data. It doesn't rely on that. It uses your website, your competitor's website, your Google Search Console, and it brings everything together using its own analysis. It's not relying on other tools. That tool does what it needs to do for you. So for something like Albanian, it's pulling from your competitors itself, as well as using SEMrush. It's pulling from your site itself as well as using SEMrush, and it's also looking at your Google Search Console data. So for that language, for Albanian or for another language that's not well supported, there are tools that are working hard. And for the Turkish market, I'm probably preempting Cosmin, but he's going to be talking about a tool for the Turkish market that will serve the Turkish market specifically in Turkish. So there are tools coming out for other languages specifically. So anybody else want chocolate and have a question? Because I've got 15 bars of chocolate. You can just randomly come up for me for chocolate. Oh, look, there's more chocolate to give away. He's walking away the other direction. You can always shout, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to hear you. Chocolate is an inspiration. It's this lovely melty chocolate truffle middle bar. It's delicious. You'll love it.
Thanks. Hi, Mihai Apergis. I'm from Romania. Regarding keyword research, so let's say you've chosen a topic, I don't know, chocolate ganache. It's high volume, low competitiveness, so you know you're going to write about it and you're going to get some traffic. How do you go further about that? Do you go into more in-depth keyword research like long tails to decide what questions you need to answer or what keywords you might need to include, or do you simply just use your best creativity and aim for being as creative as possible and focus less on keywords once you have the topic?
I think with keyword research, we're talking about topics. So we should never have one keyword that we're looking at. We should always have a big ecosystem of keywords around the topic. So if I'm talking about chocolate ganache, I know that there are ways that naturally I would speak about the topic, and so I would write about them with multiple keywords. If I'm really stuck because it's not my language, then I'm going to look at this, but I'm going to organize it topically. So if it's chocolate ganache, it might say chocolate covered ganache, white chocolate ganache, dark chocolate ganache, milk chocolate ganache in films, best chocolate ganache, how to make chocolate ganache, best recipes for chocolate ganache, things like that. And those are all in a topic cloud, so to speak. So they're all associated with each other. So we're not being spammy, but we're looking at what other topics, what other things are people looking for when they're looking for chocolate ganache. So we need to decide, what are we going to write about chocolate ganache? Is it a recipe? Is it an article about the history of chocolate ganache? What is it that we're going to do around chocolate ganache? And then write naturally. Keep the keywords in mind, because that's what people are looking for, but write naturally. Don't try to force it, and you will hit the keywords. If you try to force it or use spinning or Mad Lib, and Mad Lib is not translatable. If you try to do something where it's a spammy tactic, then yeah, you're going to have to find all the keywords, do all that transitioning into sentences, and yes, it's going to be hard to rank. But what you should be doing is writing naturally around the topic. So chocolate chip cookies, there's probably in here chocolate chip cookie recipe, best chocolate chip cookie recipe, cookie recipe with chocolate chips, how to make chocolate chip cookies, best way to make chocolate chip cookies, all that sort of thing. And so just by writing naturally, Google's AI understands that chocolate chip cookie recipe and best recipe for chocolate chip cookies is the same thing. So write naturally, but don't keyword stuff, is what I'm saying, because that's an old-fashioned tactic.
I don't, oh, okay. I think I pressed something. Okay, let's take some sort of edge case where you want to write naturally, but you see a lot of people searching for what amount of sugar should I use in my chocolate ganache, and a lot of keywords around that. So do you just have a list of ingredients and you say sugar, 100 grams, something like that, or do you actually have a special section because you know a lot of people are interested in that information, and you write, I don't know, 1 or 2 paragraphs just about that?
So it's not really an edge case, because if you look at this scatter graph, and when you get a copy of the slides, you'll be able to see, there's actually things, there are questions in here like how to make chocolate brownies. I'm not going to call my recipe how to make chocolate brownies. The AI will understand that a chocolate brownie recipe is how to make chocolate brownies. But I might also say my method, I might change method to how to make chocolate brownies if I can see that a lot of people are looking for this, but no one seems to be servicing it. If it's something like how much sugar should I use, and a lot of people are looking for this, I might add an FAQ, because clearly there's something people aren't understanding about the recipes that are already out there, and so I might just put in a lot of people wonder about how much sugar should be used in a chocolate ganache recipe. You need to balance as a percentage, this against this, but I would only say it once, if that, but only because I'm helping someone, adding value by recognizing that this isn't being serviced by the rest of the industry or the rest of the articles, and so people are asking it of Google, and there's no clear answer, so I'm giving an answer, and that will also help you get that lovely one-box answer and things like that, because you're helping people. So it's about helping, not spamming. Don't just keyword stuff a page that doesn't work anymore. So the whole purpose of this is to help guide our writing, but it's not to tell us what keywords have to be in there. And there is actually in there how to make chocolate chip cookies. You would think just looking for a recipe would be how to make chocolate chip cookies. But there is how to make chocolate chip cookies in there, how to make a chocolate cake, how to melt chocolate, put it in the microwave? No, that's bad. So there are lots of questions that are being asked of Google that you can answer, and if you add value, then that's fine. Just don't stuff the keywords in the page and hope for the best, because that's not going to work anymore. Any other questions? Yeah? Is this going to be a question in Turkish? Yes, okay.
Also from Romania, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
After you, we've also got one here.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you were describing topics as, and talking about chocolate by, I don't know, saying best chocolate ganache, dark chocolate ganache, white chocolate ganache, and so forth. And I think there's a misunderstanding in the industry regarding topics and just groups of keywords. This to me seems a bit like keyword stuffing, a bit of an outdated fashion of working. And topics would be like, okay, so chocolate ganache is related to other keywords. They make a semantical topic, not just something that's based on the keyword and just use some attributes. And in my day-to-day work, my issue is, how do I find that topic? How do I define it? There isn't quite a tool for it yet.
So how do you define topics and semantically related keywords?
Exactly, yeah.
That's the research. So you put in, so one of these here is how to make a chocolate cake. So you know, if you're researching this, you put chocolate cake into Google's Adwords suggest, into keywordtool.io, into SEMrush. Now, SEMrush and keywordtool.io are only going to give you variants of chocolate cake. But Google will also say chocolate gâteau. And then you'll be like, ooh, into keywordtool.io, chocolate gâteau. And then, so there are tools that will give you related suggestions. So the Answer the Public will also look at other things like chocolate fountain. How is that related to chocolate brownie? So there are tools out there that will give you semantically related keywords. Plus, you can go on to tools to give you semantically related keywords. So if you look in the search engine of your choice for a semantic tool, a semantic word tool, don't always use the word keyword, a semantic word tool, or synonyms. The word synonyms, look for synonyms. There are sites that will give you synonyms for words. Things like that will help you look at the whole topic, not just ganache. That's a tough one because there's not many ways to talk about a ganache, but call it ganache. But chocolate cake, chocolate gâteau, flourless chocolate torte, it's not a cake, it's a tort, but you know, you can see. So synonyms or semantic words. So use the search engine of your choice. Use Yandex. I love Yandex. I'm a bit of a Yandex fangirl. So use Yandex and go in and look at synonym tools, and that will help you with topicality. So now we have one last question here because I'm out of time. Just over here in the front row. Just here. I hope that, will I get a translation? Will someone shout out a translation for me?
İlk Türkçe soruyu da ben sorayım madem. Merhabalar.
Is someone, please, translate for me, please. Igit, will you, thank you.
Çeviri şu an yapılıyor mu?
Yeah? Okay.
Tamam. Ben samimi başlıklarla ilgili konuşacaktım. Siz samimi başlık vermenin daha önemli olduğundan falan bahsediyorsunuz. Yalnız şöyle bir durum var. Ben çok güzel bir içerik oluşturdum. Diyelim ki damla çikolatalı pasta ile ilgili. Hazırlanışı ile ilgili daha doğrusu. Bu içeriği oluşturduktan sonra kelime analizini yapmaya başladım. Bu kelimeyi başlığı nasıl verebilirim diye bir kelime analizi yapmaya başladım. Kelimelerimi de buldum. Çok güzel. Ona göre samimi bir başlık da oluşturdum. Ve yayına verdim. Rakiplerimi araştırmaya başladım. Bir baktım rakiplerim tamamen kelimelerin tamamını toplayıp, en çok aranan kelimelerin tamamını toplayıp başlık oluşturmuşlar. Ve onlar daha iyi konumlarda listeleniyor. Ve benim yaptığım içerik hiçbir şekilde listelenmiyor. Bu Google'ın yaptığı bir haksızlık mıdır aslında? Benim sorayım ben size.
In the tabella.
Should I have stopped him at some point to let you catch up?
Yeah. It's a long question, but I will try to show my translation skills.
You're on the hot seat now, Igit.
I'm a dropout student of Bilkent University. Sorry for that. He's asking that I'm trying to find the best keywords about my niche and then trying to create a content with just using enough these keywords. But some people in my industry, which is like black hat or gray hat guys, are using too much keyword repetition and then ranking much more better than me. Maybe it's a better question to ask to Gary.
So Gary, we've got this list of sites.
Gary's presentation maybe will last for 10 minutes and then 1 hour question answer, maybe, might be great. Do you think that it creates an inequality situation, and how can we deal and solve this problem?
So, if I've understood correctly, you're saying that other people are keyword stuffing and they're winning.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, when I used to do this, because I used to be a black hat.
I think Gary's not
It's hard to whisper when you're mic'd up. So I used to be a black hat. I used to spam. I used to put lots of keywords in pages. And I used to rank really well. And then Google changed, and it stopped being profitable to do this. And so I started speaking at conferences instead. So Google will catch up in non-English languages. I'm sorry, Gary, if you're in the audience. It is very bad at non-English algorithm changes at times. It is bad at catching spam in non-English areas. So for me, as a black hat, black hat? Shh, don't tell Gary. I know I can rank very well in other countries by using black hat tactics. Personally, I'm getting close to 50. I would like to see all of you. My legacy should be quality over quantity. But I know, as someone who plays the pharmaceuticals, gambling, and other things game, that you have to spam to win. You have to buy links. You have to make spammy pages. In this country, at the moment, you can win by being a spammer. It won't last. It won't. Gary is here talking to Turkey as a market because it won't last. So while right now it's a tactic you could use, it won't last. And hopefully Gary is not here for me to say, if you want to spam, buy a different domain, use that domain for your spamming, put all your spammy links there, and then when Google catches up and burns it, you have your original domain that's safe. But be careful, okay? Use a professional. I didn't say that, right? We didn't record that. That was never said. I never said be spammy.
Not only Gary, but also Fatih is here. He's also responsible with Turkish Webmaster community. Also, if you have any find any time to catch Fatih, you can also ask questions. Acceptable? Okay, great. He said that don't do that. Okay, wrong reference. Okay, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. So let's take a selfie and then.
Oh, selfie.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. And don't forget to find me for chocolate, because there's chocolate. I have lots of chocolate. Even if you didn't ask a question, come to me for the chocolate.